Let's wrap this course up with Clarity Config. You probably heard Clarity Config mentioned a dozen times or so through this whole course. And what is it? Now, Clarity Config is a tool that we can use to do some really neat things inside these printers. Unfortunately, this tool is not always taught to you, the end user, and that's a shame, but don't worry, we're gonna fix that right now. So there's several reasons why you wanna pull this software up and use it. The first and most common is, let's just say we wanna recalibrate our touchscreen. Now, this can be done through the settings, right? We can go ahead and toggle a recalibration. You know, for whatever reason, your finger is not working, it's not working in the right spot. If you can do it through the touchscreen, by all means, go ahead and do it, get it re-squared up, good to go. However, there's a lot of times where you can't, for some reason, you're just unlucky and that settings button you can't even touch. This is where Clarity Config comes in. Now there's other things like motor calibrations, IP addresses, inputs, outputs that we talked about earlier. Let's try this manual touchscreen version of the recalibration, and then we'll just jump into Clarity Config. At our touchscreen, we are gonna hit the settings button, then we're gonna go to setup and control. And in here, we'll find the recalibrate touchscreen. Go ahead and say yes. And now we have this window that pops up and there's a little tick mark. We have to hold our finger over it. It's gonna do the center and then all four corners. And this is to gauge where the digitizer is, where your finger is, etc. Once we do that, it'll save these settings and we are good to go. Before we jump into Clarity Config and how to set that up, we do need to know what the IP address of our current printer is, the one that we want to connect to. So that's really simple. All we have to do is go to the settings button in the top right corner and then hit diagnostics, control, communications, TCP IP, and in here we can find our IP address and we can find our subnet. Jumping into Clarity Config, we're gonna pull up our control panel on our computer first, and we're gonna go to the network and internet settings here, and then we're gonna go to the network and sharing center. Okay, on the left-hand side, we're gonna look for change adapter setting, and then we're gonna find the Ethernet port, right-click, and go to properties. Once we do that, we're gonna find the IPv4, again, select properties. Okay, inside here is our IP address. This is what we change to update and be able to communicate with the printer. All right, so our printer IP address is something different than what we are setting here for our laptop. So you can see we have 169.254.2.2. That is because on our printer, we have 169.254.2.1. We're gonna close this window out and we will pull up Clarity Config. All right, now notice Clarity Config is up in the IP address section. We have the IP address that we talked about, 169.254.2.1. Now on the bottom right, we actually have a not connected status, but that is because I did not plug in my Ethernet port. So as soon as I plug in my Ethernet cord, we're ready to go. We get this, we have some communication, and we need to press upload. And once we press upload, we are now talking to the board of the printer. This is where we can start having some fun. There's a few things we can change. For instance, right off the bat, we'll pull up devices, print heads, number 1, and we'll go to print information. Scroll down a little bit. We can change the printer type. So we can change here from intermittent to continuous printing. We can play with our print force, print darkness, and this low speed behavior, so we can tell it to automatically print when we have low speed. That's for continuous applications. Now in here we can mess with our inputs, mess with our encoder, change our number of lines, which is the resolution or the wheel diameter. There's iAssure. We can turn iAssure on or off. Consumables, we can change some settings for that. And we can pop open this imaging folder and we can play with custom date codes as well as start of day. Now, this is a common one that I get asked quite frequently. So, for instance, if you wanted your rollover to start at 6 a.m. instead of midnight, that would mean the Best Buy codes wouldn't actually change until 6 the next morning. And this is useful if you're running 3 shifts. And some people like it, some people don't. Let's see, what else? Operations. Okay, I want to pause here. This is a very important folder. Inside the operations folder is where we have 2 things I'd like to talk about. Number 1, the very first is characterize ribbon motor, right? That is our ribbon sensor, tension, calibration, gains. This is what we do to perform a motor calibration. Now next, underneath that is cycle head position. Cycle head position is a very useful tool. What we can do here is actually move our print head and our carriage back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and not use up any ribbon. And what makes this so useful is I have found when we start getting carriage position errors and there's a motor problem, it's identified during this test. Typically within the first 10 minutes of running this test, you will fail and get carriage position error. You will replace that motor, one of the motors. When we replace those, we can run this test for hours and never fail. We'll close out this operations folder, then we'll pop into user interface. So inside the Clarity, you can find the recalibrate touchscreen like we talked about. So you can go trigger that down at the bottom left. Config, you can make an archive, web server, you can enable this or disable it. It comes default disabled. Jumping into the system tab, we can scroll down here and look for the TCP IP folder. Now we open this up and we can find our IP address. This is where we can change this, update it to whatever you need it to be. And that brings us to the end of our course about our Videojet 6530 printers. We've covered everything from the foundational basics of how a printer works to the deep dive of pulling components apart, why this component goes bad, how it goes bad, what to do. Now you have all the knowledge necessary to go out there and troubleshoot these things on your own. Feel confident you can do this. Remember, we have those flow charts to help you when you need it. My goal is to empower you to repair, maintain, troubleshoot these printers all on your own, minimizing your downtime and maximizing your productivity. Tell your boss. Keep these lessons handy. Don't be afraid to refer back to them whenever you need them. And don't hesitate to put your new expertise into use. Thank you for joining me on this journey.